All right, let's do some freight market trading. So, the most important part of this course is learning about the freight market. And how it works. So, like most industries, the freight market follows simple rules of supply and demand. So, it's important to note that, like any other market, the freight market is ever changing and goes through cycles, right? So, there are periods of time where there will be an increase in pay for loads and times when the loads will dip below average. So, that is the nature of this business. And you do want to watch out for that, especially if you're a carrier. Uh, what I've seen happen is sometimes carriers will get used to the highs of a market. And so they might start adjusting their life in that way, or maybe freight brokers or dispatchers as well. And when that dip comes, it's kind of a recipe for disaster. So, we talked a bit about how accessorial certifications and equipment can influence the rate of loads. There is one more thing that influences the rate of loads more than anything, and it is location. So, as a dispatcher, familiarizing yourself with the best paying market hubs and their lanes will make your job easier and help you gain the respect of your clients. So, if there are lanes, not all truck types have access to lanes. So, market hubs. So, for the most part, you'll find that the majority of freight is found in cities with large metro areas called market hubs. So, among these cities are like Houston, Phoenix, Kansas City, Chicago, Los Angeles, Dallas, St. Louis, Cleveland, Charleston. I might have added way too many. You get the point. So, this is due to metro areas having large concentrations of manufacturers, farms, distribution centers, ports, processing facilities, etc. So, as a dispatcher, you'll find that booking freight in larger metros will be easier, right? So, alternatively, you'll find that attempting to find freight in rural areas will be quite hard. So, for example, uh, let's say you're 100 miles outside of Kansas City, you're probably going to end up having to deadhead to Kansas City to pick up a load. So, because the manufacturers, ports, DCs, processing facilities do not tend to be located in small cities, you won't find as many loads coming out from those small cities or small towns. So, market rates. A common misconception is that the price of loads are the same across all market hubs. So that is not true. Just because Phoenix is paying a certain amount to Houston, Texas, does not mean that Kansas City is paying the same amount to Houston, Texas. Just because Atlanta, Georgia has a certain amount of loads, let's say thousands of loads, doesn't mean Seattle, Washington has the same amount of loads or the same amount of well paid freight. So you'll find that some market hubs will consistently have above average paying freight. For example, kind of loads coming out of Texas have consistently paid well, kind of historically, above average for the last 6 years. Again, we are kind of in a freight recession right now, so uh, better than the rest of the market. So Texan cities like Dallas, Houston, Laredo kind of have a reputation for having some of the best paying outbound freight. So outbound meaning pick up from there and leave. So drive in, reefer, flatbed rates. However, there are some rural areas in Texas like Amarillo that have below average outbound paying freight. So it's important to research before accepting any loads. And then also keep in mind that um, an area might have low paid freight as well as scarce amount of freight. So you do want to watch out for that. So on the flip side of the market, you'll find market hubs that are known for having consistently below average outbound freight rates. So for example, Vermont, Florida, right? Consistently ranked as one of the worst paying states for outbound, all types of outbound freight. So box truck, flatbed, you name it, not so great paying freight out of Vermont, Florida as well. So while this doesn't mean you won't find freight that might pay well coming out of Vermont, you should expect to have some trouble doing so, right? So knowing your market will help you plan your routes and lanes for your drivers. So inbound versus outbound. So there is a difference between outbound and inbound freight. So outbound refers to freight leaving a city. Inbound refers to freight entering the city. So what we spoke about when we spoke about prior, what we spoke about prior was referring to outbound freight. However, there are certain market hubs that pay great inbound freight. So you do want to be careful because sometimes when you have that well-paid inbound freight rate, it's to compensate for low-paying outbound rates. So a good example of that would be like Denver, Colorado, and Miami, Florida. So you'll find that inbound freight for these cities will be incentivized. So I've seen like Denver freight at like $4 a mile sometimes, not all the times, but I've seen it. And then Miami as well. I've seen some really well paid my freight heading into Miami or Tampa or literally any place in Florida, right? So it is usually incentivized. However, the common complaint is that once you get there, it's really hard to get out of these cities, and it's really hard to get out of these cities with well-paid freight. So you might, let's say you get, actually, this is a kind of a good example I just saw recently. Recently being February of 2025, Phoenix to Denver was at I think like 380 a mile, and then the return freight was at $1 a mile. So that kind of return lane from Denver to Phoenix was $1 a mile. So all it does is really bring that average out to $2 for the whole run. Not so great. It might be great for someone, right? But you do want to keep an eye on that return. So just because you went somewhere and it paid well, right? Just because you went to Denver and it paid well, doesn't mean Denver is going to pay well heading out. So because of this, you do want to make sure that you're researching the city that your driver will be delivering to prior to taking the load, right? So that you do know kind of, am I in a place that's kind of impossible to get out of? Unfortunately, it really is impossible for me to name all of the cities that you may run into an issue with. I mean, there's so many cities across the U.S. The market is so different across each city, which is kind of why I will push for you all to get the DAT tools and that package so that you guys can kind of view those heat maps and be able to tell where the hot freight is at, those tri hauls. It'll save you a lot of time, a lot of energy. It's just kind of it's going to make sure that you don't need to. I guess you don't have to be an expert, right? So it kind of gives you that expert level information without having to have spent years to come by it. So I will tell you which package that is when we get there. So there are still some valid reasons that your driver may still want to deliver to cities with poor paying outbound freight. So maybe it's their origin city. So maybe they live there. So maybe they live in Miami. They have to get there anyways. So you just kind of have to put up with the fact that they are going to struggle to get out of Miami, but also make that an expectation, right? So if you live in Miami, I can't change the market. You are going to have a difficult time every time. It doesn't matter which dispatcher you have. It's always going to be a poor paid market, right? At least up until 2025 has been historically. So um, sometimes people will need to take a load to that place. Maybe they're going on vacation there. Like I've had box truck drivers that are like, "Hey, I'm spending Christmas with my family in Miami, so just book me a load headed that way." So whatever the case, just make sure that you're communicating with your driver when you're planning out your loads. All right. So lanes. So lanes are routes that run on a regular schedule. So once you begin dispatching, you'll find that market hubs often connect freight with other market hubs. So figuring out where each of these market hubs connect will make it easier for you to plan loads and deliver consistent freight to your drivers. So for example, and I should note, lanes typically pertain to non-specialty vehicles. So, like vans and reefers will have lanes. So, for example, Phoenix, Arizona always has loads going to like Phoenix, right? Or Phoenix always has loads going to various cities in Texas. So, like I've seen Phoenix to Denver is like a common lane. Denver to Phoenix is a common lane. Phoenix to Houston, Phoenix to Dallas, Phoenix to Austin, common lane. Flip side, Houston always has that return lane to Phoenix. Denver always has that return lane to Phoenix as well. So it's kind of like once you get into that, once you really figure out your market, it won't be hard, especially if you're running these non-specialty vehicles. So it won't be hard to be like, okay, well, Phoenix plays X amount to Denver. I'm just going to go to Phoenix. I just want to load to Denver every Monday, and then I want to come back from Denver every Wednesday, right? And run that a couple times, run that lane a couple times a week, right? And then that'll also make it easier to kind of develop those relationships with freight brokers that you do have that consistent load, right? So if you've gotten used to a load and they like the way that you run that load, you'll just stick on that long term. So it's pretty easy. If you're a dispatcher, same deal. You'll develop that relationship and it'll make it easier to dispatch. So, uh, yeah. So backhaul is that Phoenix to when you're in Phoenix to Houston, right? That backhaul would be Houston to Phoenix. It's just sending you back home. So it can be run as a round trip and help your driver be home every week. Sometimes some of these lanes can have you, you can run these lanes a couple times a week and be home and meet your hours of service. No big deal. So it is important to note that not all market hubs have lanes connected to one another. So, for example, just because Phoenix has lanes that go to Houston and Salt Lake City, Los Angeles, and Las Vegas, does not mean that Phoenix has loads going to Charleston and Indianapolis or New York City, vice versa. So, each market hub has kind of these pre-established lanes that they're kind of connecting to. Um, I've noticed that with kind of like California, Idaho, New Mexico region, uh, California, Nevada, Idaho region. So for some reason that like those are kind of common lanes. So it's really hard to get out of that because you're kind of in this like perpetual triangle. So these market hubs tend to connect with the same market hubs. So it'll make it hard to be like, hey, I really need to go to Texas, but now I'm stuck in this kind of little triangle. So keep in mind, and you will figure that out as you go along. So when booking outbound loads to destinations without regular lanes, so while booking outbound loads to destinations without regular lanes isn't a bad idea, like isn't the worst idea, you'll find difficulty recreating them. So sometimes you do have that one-off lane that never shows up, but when it does shows up, pays super well. Yeah, you can take the load, but do not expect to have that load show or that same lane show up a couple weeks from now or a month from now. So recognizing these types of patterns will help you become a great dispatcher or help you better self-dispatch and save time. Guide to Freight has partnered with Tula to help you start your business. If you click on the link tree in our channel bio, you can book a free consultation with them and they will help you determine the best business structure for your business. Now let's get back to the video. So, important things to note about lanes. So, all lanes pay different rates. Kind of went through that. Some lanes will be above average, others will pay below average rates. Important to research them. Certain truck types don't have access to as many lanes. So outside of kind of dry vans, reefers, you'll see less lanes available. And that's just because specialty or smaller trailers tend to haul freight to less conventional places like construction sites, restaurants, small businesses, schools, and convention centers. Kind of in that same regard, box trucks, for example, most loads for box trucks do not tend to be going from warehouse to warehouse. They tend to be going from warehouse to customer, from warehouse to small business, right? But not warehouse to warehouse. So uh, do not tend to typically have those lanes available. So veering outside of market hubs with well-established lanes usually results in deadhead. So that just means, let's say I delivered 100 miles outside of Kansas City, probably going to need to drive 100 miles into Kansas City to get a load, right? Or I'm like in, let's say Montana. This has happened quite a bit. For some reason, Montana doesn't have many loads. But let's say you get to Montana, you might have to drive 400 miles to Milwaukee just to get a load, right? To Wisconsin or to Chicago. And so you'll be empty and losing money and wasting fuel. So basically, deadhead just means that drivers can expect to drive without a load, right, to a nearby market hub to pick up their next load. Doesn't make drivers as happy as they tend to be losing money on fuel while doing so. There are some situations where they might be cool with it. So like maybe that just happened to pay so well, they know what to expect. But let's say it's like a $4 mile, $4 per mile load. They might be like, you know what, let's take that. I'll do Deadhead to Milwaukee, no problem, right? So seasonal freight. So some lanes will make a resurgence around certain seasons. So for example, and will pay more. So for example, think of all your favorite fruits and veggies. Uh, Florida for refrigerated units. Uh, Pays a lot better than dry van because of these seasonal fruits and vegetables. So when they are in season, obviously huge demand to distribute them all over the U.S. Of course, foods from the coast will typically be distributed around the states nearest to them. So as a dispatcher, good idea to know which season some of these popular foods grow in. If you create that relationship with a broker who usually has those types of loads, you could have an easy time distributing well-paid loads to your drivers for a few months. So like maybe you have this really good connection with uh, a strawberry farm, right? I think strawberry farms are a thing. You might have that. You might have like an excess of loads and be like, "Hey, I have a couple of drivers in that same area," and getting that repeated uh, lane or load for the next couple months, right? So booking freight. So RPM means rate per mile as long as your driver is working independently. This is the metric that is used to calculate pay. So metric will also be the one that you'll use to determine the average pay rate for the lanes you research. So all truck types have different average RPMs. They also vary by location. You'll find that local freight tends to have higher RPM. That doesn't mean it pays more, but I mean if you're getting paid to stay local, let's say 250 Kansas City, obviously you're not making more per week or per day, but you are making more per mile, right? So when speaking to your client about potential loads, it's best to set an expectation about the average RPM that they should expect while working with you. So you do just kind of want to know, hey, what number are we trying to stay around? Like, are we trying to stay around $2 per mile, 180 per mile, and then that'll obviously help inform you which loads you want to be taking. Okay. So dedicated freight, not to be confused with dedicated contract freight, right? So dedicated freight refers to loads that must be sealed at the door, and they will seal them and place a sticker on them. Um, Basically, you can't combine any loads with other loads. Typically, refrigerated freight is dedicated by default because it's really hard to find. Let's say you're, let's say you have 12 degrees. You have your refrigerated units at 12 degrees, but for cheese, right? But you have like a tree, like a nursery, that needs to be set at 68 degrees. So it's kind of hard to uh, put multiple loads on a refrigerated run, right? So if the seal is tampered with, they will charge your driver a heavy fine. Sometimes they just won't pay your load. So let's say you booked this load that was like $2,000. You got to the site and the seal was tampered with, either because your driver opened up the load or because he loaded more freight onto their trailer. They could very well not get paid for the load, and that's not good. So just be wary of that. So FTL, full truckloads, are dedicated freight by default for the most part. Space, weight, pallet size doesn't allow for more freight to be hauled typically. LTL, or less than or partial loads, are sometimes marked as dedicated. Um, and that's just because the shipper has requested it that way, just to make sure that their load isn't damaged and arrives on time. Obviously, you're not going to take this a load that's like 60 cents a mile and 2,000 miles out. That's a less than load if they're not letting you run it with something else, right? That's not smart. So LTL, less than truckloads, are also known as partial loads and can be combined with other partial loads. Not all the time, but can be. So freight tends to pay less than average because it weighs less and because they are anticipating that you're going to run it with something else, or just like you have extra room. I've done this with like outside of smaller trucks like box trucks with like dry vans. I've done it with like ATM loads. I think I had like this ATM load that was like 8,000 pounds that paid pretty well for being a partial load, and they allowed us to run it with another. I think it was like, can't remember now, but it was like two or three pallet sizes, and you can do that. You can kind of add multiple loads to your from different companies to your trailer if they allow it, if it's not dedicated. So it is important to check with your brokers before booking these partial or LTL loads, because you want to make sure that the loads don't require a CO. Worst case scenario is that the freight broker tells you that you can add another load, and then you get to the site and they're like, "Oh yeah, this is dedicated," and you took it for like 50 cents a mile, and you have to drive like 1,000 miles out. Right? Not good. Not good. Right? Or you get there and you already have a load on there, and then you've just wasted your time. Freight broker might be upset, but again, you do just want to verify that if you're taking an LTL load, run that through your broker. Just want to make sure this isn't dedicated or I don't have a seal on it. So it's important to be careful. Combining refrigerated loads, like I said, change of temperature could cause full product loss. Also, condensation. This is something that I've seen people do. Like try to put a dry load into a refrigerated load, and it's like condensation. Like you could still damage the dry load. So do not do that. And tri-hull. So this tri-hull pertains to this is kind of a tool within DAT, but also kind of tactic for booking freight. So it's basically when you have an origin city, it's like a triangle: origin city, middle city, and backhaul city. So maybe you're getting paid the most when you go to this middle city, right? And then, so let's say I'm in Kansas City, and then let's select a random city like Dallas, Texas, right, as my final point. Perhaps I'm getting paid more to go from Kansas City to Chicago, and then from Chicago to Dallas, right? Maybe that's the best way to get paid, and then go from Dallas to Kansas City. Perhaps that's like the best paid triangle, right? And maybe I'm making more money than I would be if I was driving from Kansas City to Dallas and back and doing that a couple of times a week. So tri hauls are kind of this way of maximizing profits and creating these weekly routes. DAT will help you find the best tri hauls. I love that tool. It'll save you a ton of time and make you money, right? So it's a bit of a trick of the trade, and will make and like usually more established drivers or owner operators or carriers are kind of familiar with the best tri hauls for their truck type. And then finally, last slide, I just wanted to make note again that like most industries, trucking has cycles. So, for example, during the COVID crisis, we were kind of at an all time high. But for the last couple of years, we've kind of been in a freight recession. I know I'm not sure if anyone's publicly saying that, but I am now on this video. So this is February of 2025. We've been in a little bit of freight recession. COVID, we were kind of at all-time high rates. So troubling, because you do want to make sure that you know where you are in that market. Like I kind of mentioned earlier, there were people who bought really expensive equipment during kind of inflated let's say trailer prices or inflated truck prices because loads were paying so well during COVID, and when that crashed or when it normalized and then went under, they were unable to afford those payments. So you do kind of want to know where you are in that cycle. I also want to make note that not all truck types are going to be affected in the same way by these kind of cycles. So some may not even be affected. It happened quite a bit with box trucks. I noticed that box trucks were hardly affected during this like kind of trucking recession, and so people were like, I didn't even realize that there was a trucking recession because box trucks were kind of just still getting paid the same, that they kind of getting same rates. So just important to note that it is normal and for these kind of dips and highs to happen. Um, you are kind of at the brunt of it because you are an independent either carrier, an independent dispatcher, and you do not have a contract if you are working with the load board. If you get a contract, there's more stability. So just know when you're in a tight market or when you're in an easier one, and kind of learn to navigate that and treat your life or manage your life and expectations accordingly. So that is the end of this PowerPoint. I'll see you in the next one. Paralysis, we've got you. First ELD is our chosen partner, and their ELD is not only contractless, but easily integrates with Highway, Project 44, Trucker Tools, and MacroPoint. If you're interested in getting more information, click the link. All right, so in this video, we'll be going through onboarding a carrier to your dispatching company and filling out a packet with RMIS. So in this example, we have a carrier that is reaching out to inquire about our dispatching services. So just a few tips. It's important to lead the conversation here, right? So if you let the carrier lead, they're just going to ask you questions regarding your rate and kind of when you can start to dispatch them. However, as we know at this point, right, there are other factors that are more important than just the rate that you're charging and the start date. So you're most likely not going to want to work with every carrier that reaches out to you. Some of them might just be not so ideal clients for you, and that could just be based off of location or truck type or work style. So keep that in mind. And then, side note, if you are a carrier, I encourage you to research thoroughly and book a consult before even buying a truck and starting a business, because your goals might just not align with the type of truck and type and kind of the business that you want to start. So, for example, you might have goals to make an X amount of X quantity of money or X amount of money, but you live somewhere where the market is just not so great, or you want to buy a type of truck that just does not have that as a reasonable expectation. So keep that in mind. Book a one-on-one consult if you have questions and you want to go over that with someone like me. If not, book it with someone else. But do not get started in this business without getting a professional opinion. The trucking industry is a market, right? So I can't control it. You can't control it. No one can control it. It's kind of this like it's operating in and of itself. So I can't really control the volume that there is present for a load. A dispatcher can't either. The driver can't either. So no amount of wishing for a different market to be different is going to change that. So you could very well live somewhere, for example, that just has zero loads available to it. So I've had people call me and be like, "Hey, can you find me a load?" And they're like, they live somewhere rural, right? And I'm not that great of a dispatcher. You're not that great of a dispatcher. Someone else isn't as great of a dispatcher to be able to make up for their market, right? So just be wary of that. That being said, if your driver isn't new to trucking, right? So this guy who called us, he should have a general idea of the cities that he likes driving to, areas that he doesn't like driving to. He should also kind of have an idea of what that market is like, especially if they're an independent owner operator. They should kind of start to pick up on what lanes pay well based on the rate confirmations that they're receiving. So typically, let's say someone calls you and you already have experience with the Phoenix market, or they do as well. They might tell you, "Hey, I get paid the most when I go to Columbus, Ohio." That's just a random statement. But they might tell you that, and so you might just base it off of what they're telling you. So it's important to kind of get that information from them. If the driver is new to trucking, you're just going to want to begin by identifying the type of truck that they have, their origin city, kind of their basics, like where do they like to drive, what do they not like to drive, do they avoid kind of like mountainous areas. So I've had people tell me I won't drive through Tennessee because there's mountains. If you keep an online map open, so like a Google map, you should be able to view kind of what the terrain looks like via satellite. So if they're telling you I don't like driving through mountainous areas, you should be able to check out what that potential route should be before booking a load. So kind of after you've identified that origin city for your driver, you'll need to start looking for areas that connect best. So these lanes, if you aren't familiar with the lanes in those areas or out of the origin city that your driver is calling about, I like to say, "Hey, give me 24 hours," or I have said, "Hey, give me 24 hours. Let me research kind of what those best lanes are and then get back to you." sometimes a driver might not want to wait 24 hours, but a lot of times they will. And then you can get back to them and be like, hey, this is kind of what I figured out would work best for the type of driving you want to do. So specialty vehicles like box trucks, side note, do not operate on lanes. They instead operate on zones, right? So um, that's important to note because some box truck drivers will be like, well, I'm looking for this lane up. They don't have lanes. You just want to kind of explain that to them, right? They don't have lanes available. They have areas, zones, uh, places that kind of have loads for them, regions. So here are some questions that you can pose to your prospective clients. One, max weight. What is the max weight you're comfortable carrying? Important note because weight affects fuel cost, right? They can also damage trailers. I've heard of that. Damage axles, damage whatever. So some truck drivers don't like going above a certain weight. Two, what commodities do you not like carrying? Commodities, as we remember, are kind of the actual type of equipment that's being hauled. Is it hay? Is it food? Is it onions? Whatever. What do they not like carrying? What do they like carrying? Are they opposed to anything? Three, are there shippers, receivers that they don't like hauling for, they don't like visiting? So some carriers might have kind of places like, let's say there's a warehouse that they go to that takes forever to unload them. So where they should have been paid a fair rate, now they've gone to a shipper that's holding them up all day and is not giving them a proper detention or paying out a proper layover to justify that. So some might say, I don't like picking up from this location. Do not book anything that's this, and that. Again, those are going to be your pro carriers. So are they open to shipments with multiple picks and drops? So sometimes these shipments will pay more. We've gone through that, or we will go through that. So yeah, sometimes they are open to those picks and drops. You just want to go ahead and know that before you're booking loads with them. So sometimes they'll pay more. Sometimes people will like those drop trailers. So are you open to facilities that require you to drop trailer? So especially when they're doing like a weekend load, I found that like some, let's say I like to run Monday through Friday, and so Fridays I like having a drop off trailer in Kansas City because it might take 48 hours to get loaded, and so Monday I'm ready to get on the road. I'm already loaded, right? Some people like them for that reason. Some people don't. Do they have TWIC, hazmat, any sort of certifications? Are they open to it? Just because they have the certs doesn't mean they're going to want to do the loads. Some people just don't like doing hazmat loads because they find them dangerous. Trailer food grade. Is it plated or is it wood paneled? Good question, right? You want to know this just in case, especially for those 53-foot dry vans and reefers. Brokers will require a certain type of food grade trailer in order to take loads. And it's not even just like food specific beverages as well. So like energy drinks. I'm not sure what's getting contaminated in an energy drink, but yeah, they're picky about that. Nine, liftgate pallet jack. This is a box truck question. Usually, at least I haven't come across the liftgate or pallet jack needed on any other type of load truck type. So just do they have one? Do they not? A lot of box truck loads are going to require this, so you do want to know. Okay. Um, 10, are you comfortable getting paid directly by the broker? Would you like to go directly through the factoring companies? Quick pay is occasionally, like once in a blue moon, cheaper through a brokering company. Like the lowest I've seen it, I think it was for one broker was for 1.5. Quick pay is typically 3.5%. With our partner, you can pick and choose which brokers you use for quick pay, and we do a 2% partnership. I've mentioned this a million times.
Guide to Freight has partnered with Gulf Coast Bank to provide all of our viewers with a factoring rate of 2% or less. Unlike traditional factoring companies, Gulf Coast is entirely self-funded, meaning that they are able to pass these savings along to their customers. If you're interested in signing up, you can do so by clicking the link tree in our channel bio.
And you can sign up through the link in our bio. Yeah, so sometimes they'll say, hey, I prefer quick pay, or I want all of mine to go through factoring companies, and you'll just need to know that when you're filling out carrier packets. And then 11, are there any cities you don't like driving to? Again, there's some people who just don't like driving to certain cities. either because they know they can't get paid there or can't come back, it's a deadhead city, or just because they don't like the city. You just want to know. Most important questions: what type of rate are you looking to get paid, right? So everything we do in trucking and dispatching in this kind of load board setting is done with the metric of rate per mile. They need to know what rate per mile is. You need to know what rate per mile is. You need to explain what rate per mile is if they don't know what it is. Um, because that is that, and if they're saying I want to get a flat rate because they're used to that, especially if they're coming off being a company driver, they're going to be used to flat rates. So just express, hey, everything here is rate per mile, so this is kind of what I can get you, this is what I can't get you, what do you feel comfortable with? As you begin to get more experience, uh, your input's going to be a lot more valuable to your carrier. So just remember, just because you're taking in all this information, it doesn't mean they're a good fit for you, right? And we'll talk about kind of other areas. There might be a state like Florida. Florida is very hard to get out of. It does not pay well. So maybe there are people calling you from Florida and you're like, hey, I've already done that. Like, it's actually just, I spend 5 hours looking for a load. I don't get paid for it. You know what? I don't work with Florida. So that might be something that prerequisite that you have. And that was a very real example that I used to use. So communicate your rate, billing, and mode of conversation. Mode of conversation, I recommend using WhatsApp. We're not affiliated with them, but it just helps transfer those PDF and images. It stores them in one place. It has them like you can log into your WhatsApp on a phone, tablet, whatever, and it'll save all of your documents. Usually comes in handy. It'll also come in handy for the carrier as well because carriers tend to lose a lot of their documents. So it's easy to find for them to find those BOLs or those rate confirmations. Rates are going to vary by truck type, vary by dispatcher. You just go ahead and let them know what your rate is for their truck type. And then just communicate how you're going to bill to them. So if you're using QuickBooks, use QuickBooks. Let them know you're going to use QuickBooks. If you're using Zelle, let them know you're going to use Zelle. Venmo, let them know how often you're submitting these payment terms, whatever, right? Just keep that in mind when you're talking to your potential clients. Next, you want to go ahead and gather the following documents: W-9, COI, MC Authority, NOA. We'll walk through those in a different video. I like using this template. I will post a blog post in the description that has a similar template that you can use. And then just go ahead and keep all those documents in one place. After you get all of that information and you're like, all right, I'm ready to go, one last thing you need to verify is their MC age. It's very important when working with new brokers. You want to know how old their MC is. A lot of times they don't know because they just know when they submitted the application and not necessarily when it went active. So I'll just go into a little briefing here. I can submit my application, let's say February 2nd, but if I don't submit my insurance proof and a BOC3 agent for another few months, it won't be active for another few months. And so I would have to go based on when it's activated. And a lot of these carriers don't know or will take longer to submit these documents. So these MC number ages that they give you can be very off. So I like to begin by verifying their MC age. You can do that here. Again, that's that link that I provided in the first video. I'll provide it again in this video. So right off the bat, it should take you here. You have three options. I like to search by MC. Again, DOT number is that state number. MC is that motor carrier cross state lines. MX authority is going to be Mexican authority. Name, you can search by company name. Sometimes they're not really sure what their name is or how it's listed in the system. So after you search that up, you should be taken to this page. This landing page is kind of going to have an overview. It'll look the same for every MC number. It's going to give you information about their authority, type, address that they have on file. So freight brokers, factoring companies, they use this website. It's the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration's company snapshot site to verify carrier information. So it's a very important site, and it'll be just as useful to you as it will be to them. It'll help you kind of get an understanding of what a freight broker is telling you. So if a freight broker has told me, hey, this company does not have any inspections, I can actually go in here and be like, hey, actually, I verified this as well. You don't have any inspections. That's why they don't want to work with you. Okay? So it should take you to a website that looks kind of like this. After they find your carrier information, you're going to go here. And then in that center, you want to go to where it says operating authority status. Click on the link that says for licensing information details. Click here. This is where we're going to verify information such as BOC3 agent, how old their company is, legally their MC has been active for. So we just click there and we'll get sent to that next page. You can also go to licensing and insurance on the top right hand side. I'm not sure if you can see my mouse pointing to it, but it's that kind of blue grid on the top right hand corner of this page. So it'll take you here. It's going to go ahead and pre-fill the DOT. You don't have to enter anything else. You just have to select the I'm not a robot option. You don't have to enter any other information. In fact, don't, because it'll probably mess up the search engine. So after that, you'll be taken to this page. It's just a table with MCDOT information pertaining to my company, Electric Freight, which isn't real. And then I'm going to select on that HTML button to be transferred to that page where I can verify everything else, right? So this is what that looks like. We're going to focus on the bottom portion of that page. There's 6 hyperlinks: active pending insurance, projected insurance, insurance history, authority history, pending application, revocation. And then on the left-hand side, BOC3 would appear where it says that BOC3 information. As you can also tell, it's showing that we have the required insurance on file. We are a property type carrier. We have a common authority. As far as they're concerned, they've been able to mail things to me and it gets to me. So next we'll be we're going to click on that. We're going to click on that authority history page. Get taken here. As you can see, according to this web page, my authority was granted on September 20th. That's how old my MC is. If I can't do the mental math of how many days that is, which normally I can't, and I'm pretty strict on like not guesstimating. I don't know why I don't like estimating. I'll just Google search data from calculator or days, calculation, calendar, whatever, type in the date, and it'll give me the exact date. Then I can use that information to kind of determine which freight brokers I can onboard with. And you're going to need that for this next section called Onboarding with Freight Brokers. I will go over this section in another video, so there will be a part 2. Stay tuned. We're just going to walk through onboarding with RMIS and a blog post that I've used to help you identify carriers that can or brokers that you can onboard with. And I'll see you there.
Guide to Freight has partnered with DAT Loadboard to give all of our viewers 10% off their Loadboard subscription for a year. With this deal, you can see annual savings of up to $474. If you're interested in signing up, you can do so by clicking on the link tree in our channel bio.
Alrighty, so this is part 2. Let's talk onboarding with brokers or brokerages. So this is just getting your carrier set up. So after I take in that carrier, I'm going to want to go to my blog post, which is the 50 broker packets for owner operators. I like to do this for every carrier that I work with or for every new MC. Basically what this does is help me get set up with brokers before I actually take loads with them. So if you don't already know, sometimes on some brokerages, it might take a couple days to verify your information. So let's say I call in and try to book a load. If I'm not already set up with them, I might not be able to get set up with them for another day, especially with some of these carrier packets. So if it's my first time setting up with TQL through RMIS, it's going to take 2 days to verify my insurance. So even if I want to take a load that day, I'm not going to be able to. So I like to kind of get ahead of the gun or jump in front of the gun and do that prior. So that is my recommendation. If you have an MC, whether it's your MC or your client's MC, I would start getting them set up, and then you can. All you have to do is go to the description or to the link in the description of this video. It's my blog post at guidetofreight.com. I kind of created this table, and it's got the broker name. It's got access to the carrier setup link. It's got the minimum day of authority that it's going to require. So if it requires 90 days, you'll see 90 days. And that way, with that information you pulled from Safer, you can be like, okay, well, my carrier is at 60 days, can't set up with whatever until the 90th day mark. But you might also keep track of when that 90-day mark will be. So that way you can have that ready to go. And then, of course, we have packet types. So this just shows what onboarding software we're going to be using. So there's like multiple service providers for brokerages that handle onboarding. So RMIS is one of the most popular, biggest one, I believe. And then there is Highway, MyCarrierPacket.com, and DAT. They're all slightly different, but they all require this kind of same information. So I'm just going to be walking you through RMIS in this video. If you need help with any other carrier packet, if after this you watch this video, you're like, hey, I still want to know how to get on board with Highway, let me know, leave a message, and I will make a video to help you with that. So this video is just to kind of get you familiar with that RMI through this process, through this onboarding process with online carrier packets. But again, the content should be very similar, whether you're being sent an internal carrier packet or a packet through another company. So onboarding software, RMIS, is owned by Truckstop. All packages through RMIS are similar or look similar across all freight brokerages. There's like this baseline template that is used. So if I'm setting up with TQL and they use RMIS, it's going to probably be 80% similar to if I set up with Electric Freight Brokerage LLC and they're using RMIS. So very similar, which is why I'm kind of walking you through a sample kind of Frankenstein version that I made using various RMIS packages in this video. So for new RMIS users, you can expect a delay of 1 to 2 business days while insurance information is verified. Very important. So if this is your first time setting up with RMIS, RMIS does need to verify your insurance with your insurance company, so you won't be able to book a load same day. So once you're onboarded with RMIS, you're not going to be able to go. Once you're onboarded with RMIS, you won't need to go through that insurance process again. Also, you should be able to find that most of the carrier packet has already been pre-filled after that first packet. So the first packet is really the difficult one. And then after that, brokers should only take about 20 minutes to get you onboarded, to get you completely onboarded after receiving your packet. So most info entered into the packet will be auto-saved. So example, I'm going to go ahead and link the blog post containing the brokerage link in this video. I recommend practicing beforehand if you have an MC active, or for example, if you're not going to be looking for your carrier's load for them till for another couple of days, you might just start working on getting the packages set up. So I created a Frankenstein carrier packet with an amalgamation of various brokerage packets that RMIS hosts. This is what the landing page looks like for ArcBest. They use RMIS. Others might be similar, not exact. And I also pulled from various packages or packets to kind of walk you through this one. And so the order can be kind of mixed up, but the point is kind of you getting an idea of what each page might look like. So first page is that carrier prequal page. They want you to enter, they want to verify that you meet the requirements to work with them. Every brokerage has different requirements. Some may require 60 days, some may require 30 days, some may require 6 months, some may require a year of MC active authority. Some may require an inspection, 2, 4, 5, etc. Right? So putting your information in here and searching is what's going to tell us. Interstate refers to an MC number, so hauling across state lines. So you'll select that if you want to search through using your MC number, hit next step. You only want to enter in the MC number. So don't enter in your MC number manually and your DOT number in search, just your MC number. Again, intrastate, enter your DOT number if that's how you plan to work with, just in that single state, and enter Canada. If you have an MC number and you mostly work local, enter the MC number anyways, please. So next step, you'll be taken to this page. This is just verifying my freight company, which is Electric Freight. And as you can see, I passed all of the requirements. So I don't know if they were requiring 90 days or 120 days, but whatever this imaginary company is requiring, I'm up to par. So next, with RMIS, it will take you through the truck stop two-factor authorization. This is done because of a thing called double brokering. They just want to make sure that the person who is getting this load, the company who is taking this load, actually owns the company. Okay? So I recommend that if you are a dispatcher who is setting kind of the carrier packets up for a client, I recommend that you one, importantly, that you set up this information using your carrier's information, and then or have them set it up and then just send you the link or send you the authorization link anytime you want to sign up. That way you can book these loads and finish these packets on behalf of your clients. But they will require that the information listed on the Safer website that we went to earlier is the same information that you use to sign up for carrier packets. And that is just to prevent fraud. So you'll go through the kind of creating a profile option, right? Authenticate, and then you should be here. So this information is pretty straightforward. If you have a factoring company, for example, if you signed up with our factoring company, we'll tell you kind of what to, with our partner factoring company, I'll shoot you over information on which option to select here. But yeah, you'll just enter this information. It should auto pull with your DOT or MC number. DUNS number you can leave empty, and then when you select the factoring company from the dropdown, it should auto populate on the other side. If you need to request like a accounts payable email address, you can do so with your factoring company agent. Okay. Next step, same page, contact information, corporate contact. You want to put the carrier, the owner of the company on there, sales as well. If you're a dispatch company and you're independent, your information should really just go there. Maybe sales. If you're owner operator and doing it all, you can just select same as from the drop down menu and it'll auto populate. Notice of assignment. This document will come from your factoring company. We've talked about it in a different video. Upload it there. And then some brokerage companies will house multiple brokering companies. So for example, Mode Transportation and Suntech are owned by the same company. So when you fill out their carrier packets, it usually gives you the opportunity to set up with both at the same time. It'll just give you two different agreements to sign. Agreements look something like this. I like to screenshot the information on the agreements because sometimes they have information about like terms that they use. So for example, they use POD to refer to a BOL. They use dry run to refer to a truck order not used or a tow new. So this just kind of keeps me in the loop of kind of what they're requesting from me if they're using a different kind of terminology that I would normally use. Again, and it also might have a breakdown of like kind of surcharges that I might incur during the delivery of the load and any stipulations, right? For things that they might charge me for. So if I go down the list here, they're saying that because I failed, so up top you can't really see it, but because I failed something in the safety of the delivery, they've actually charged me $1,500, which was the complete load. So
if you're looking for a fuel card, look no further than our partner A2B. With A2B, you can see average savings of 46 cents and up to $1.85 per gallon. That's not their only perk. A2B's high security provisions help prevent fraud, and their fuel cards report to credit agencies that help you build business credit. If you're ready to sign up or if you need more information, click on the link tree in the bio and select the A2B fuel card option.
I want to know that information when I'm booking with them, right? And I might want to screenshot some of this because the last thing I want to do, right? The last thing I want to do is get charged or not get paid for a load. Again, also we'll have stipulations over like how often I need to keep in contact, when the driver needs to communicate with them, etc. These next pages are insurance related. So please note that just because a carrier packet website is asking you if you have any of these insurance companies does not mean that you're required to have them for work with a broker. They just want to know. They will take you that next step where they will actually let you know, hey, this is what we kind of want the policy to include. And then, of course, that very first page would have told you what they require. So this particular company only requires auto and cargo. So they're not necessarily, you don't necessarily need to have general liability to work with them. Most companies will only require that 1 million auto, 100,000 cargo if you're working independently. So you should be sent to some variation of a page like that looks like this. That's going to ask for your insurance agent information, each policy number. If it's the same, just copy and paste it. That's why I like to have it in that little note. It just makes it easier for people like me that don't like reopening documents or just sometimes don't know where I store the document. Next, you have the W-9 on online carrier packets, it tends to be kind of formula. It tends to be electronic, so they won't require that you send in that signed copy that your broker would have, that your carrier would have sent you, or that if you're a carrier you would have filled out. This is pretty straightforward. First line company name, second line or first line owner name, second line company name, third line classification. Are they an LLC? Are they a corp? Um, so same kind of information here. You just want to enter the EIN number, the social, and then you'll just want to enter the. You'll want to check that your entry into RMIS. Put your electronic signature in and date, and you'll be able to move on to that next page. So here we have kind of information over the truck type. So I just want to note TL means truckload. So that typically refers to dry vans and reefers. LTL means less than load. By default, it refers to box truck and cargo van, but it also can refer to large trucks that are doing smaller loads. And then, of course, we have kind of a couple of other options. For example, drayage, which is those container loads, expedited, which are those straight through loads, and then commodity lists. Just asking kind of what type of loads you work with. I like to select any. It's not going to stop you from taking different loads. I mean, at the end of the day, you can accept or decline whatever load. It just makes it easier to walk through. SCAC is referring to a freight forward number. And then, of course, tractors. How many tractors do you have? Company drivers. That's how many people drive. Teams are when you have one truck with two drivers in it. That kind of switch off. They do that those kind of direct loads. Owner operators. You own the truck. You drive it. Mexico interchange refers to Mexican authority. You can cross to Mexico. Canada likewise. And then we have some certs here. Certs are going to ask you for proof. And then I will take you to the next page where you can kind of take a look at what these certs will look like. So we have SmartWay, which is an EPA program for supply chain sustainability. That just means that you're certified through them. It's similar to the CARB program, which is also kind of sustainability, but it is emissions control for California. They kind of have this strict limit on how old your truck can be, what type of engine you need to have in order to be able to take loads from California. That's California based. It's a strict requirement for California only. So whether you take loads from California or you transport out or in does not matter. If you're passing through California, you need a CARB. FAST is shipment clearance. So is CTPAT. TWIC is referring to mainly those port loads. So if you're picking up those loads from the port, you're gonna need a TWIC card ID. Hazmat is going to be needed for all those hazardous materials, paint, battery, human organs, etc. MWBE is a minority and or women-owned business enterprise cert. You will need to upload proof if you are a minority or if you are minority and women-owned business or enterprise certified. So just because you're a woman or you're a minority does not mean you can select this option. You will need proof of that certification. Same goes with DBE, which is that disadvantaged business enterprise. That one runs through the DOT. Again, this one helps you get government contracts. So if
Are you interested in earning extra money by using your truck as advertisement space? Well, let me tell you about our partners, Agile Media Group. Agile Media Group is an advertising agency that uses the sides of your truck to promote businesses like T-Mobile, ShipBob, and Mountain Dew energy drinks. They're always looking for new trucking partners to join their advertising campaigns. If you're interested in getting more information, click the link tree in the bio and select the Earn Money by Advertising option to get started.
you are a minority or a disadvantaged carrier in any way, go to their website, check it out. It will greatly benefit you. And then this TSA certified is just to get through the airport. Next, we have this equipment selection page or a variation of this page. So you'll select your equipment from here. Macro point, which is this that GPS tracking. So here is where you'd find that where you need to provide them with your ELD, electronic logging device information, so that they can link up with that macro point. And we have a great partner for our ELD as well, and I'll talk to you about that momentarily. We have ArcBest carrier operating this is for the ArcBest, my bad. They'll want to know kind of where you're operating. You are not beholden to any areas that you select here. You're not beholden to any lanes, origin states, whatever that you select on any of these pages. Um, this is just used for like when freight brokers want to cover a load, and let's say you like driving from Chicago to Indianapolis, so maybe you once in a while when a freight broker can't cover a load, he'll reach out to you based on the information you provided on this setup package. It doesn't happen too often, if I'm being honest. And if they're not able to cover it, it's probably because it doesn't pay well, or there's some sort of niche thing to it, or it's last minute. Specialty is that box truck, whatever, other than these that typically have lanes. Box trucks, you don't typically work with lanes, but you do just kind of want to give an approximation here of where you're hoping to go. Preferred stays, destination, same deal. You're not beholden to any of that information. And then registration references. So this is more common for newer MCs. They'll want to know who you've worked for before, who you have, or who you've worked before, and if they can give you the okay. Typically, you can pull this information from the broker that you spoke to or booked the load with contact email. Answer it to your best ability. I have found that they don't, like these large companies don't tend to verify these references. Smaller companies, I have heard of doing that, but most big companies don't. Diversity info, this is that MWBE, DBE. If you select yes here, there's still an option for you to select that you're not certified. So that's totally up to you. I just want you to keep in mind that most brokerages have contracts with shippers that require them to report some sort of diversity. So let's say some companies like Sugar Supreme Ice Cream wants to work with freight brokers that at least have 5% DBE owned carriers. So that is kind of why it's helpful to provide this information. It helps the brokerages more than anything, but it might also help you get more loads from said brokerages. So you would just need to have that proof before you say you're certified. So just because you select that, just because I'm Hispanic doesn't mean that I am certified, right? Just because I am whatever doesn't mean that I am certified. So you do need to have that proof. Finally, we go to that CARB page. This is, again, CARB is specific to California. It is a requirement. A good example of this is if you have a trailer that is from 2005, you're not CARB compliant with California. You can't own and operate that in California. So don't be alarmed by this page. If you aren't delivering in California, you don't need a CARB certificate. Therefore, you can just select I don't operate in California, and it won't be a big deal. And then finally, you should be done with the carrier packet. Again, my carrier packet was an amalgamation of all RMIS packets. So there wasn't this clear defined, you're done. But when you're done, you should be taken to this page that gives you a unique carrier ID and zip code. Just something to keep in mind with this page. You're going to need to save this information, particularly the carrier ID, when you go to set up with a new packet with RMIS. They are getting into the habit of asking for your carrier ID and zip code for login. So you do need to have that. I like to store that in my notes, and you can use that template that I provided earlier to go ahead and store that. Another thing is with the zip code. My zip code, I might have entered 64111. That might be what I'm used to entering, but the post office has a specific like 64111 243 -243. Typically, RMIS uses that dash whatever, so they want you to enter it in as it appears on their RMIS email that they just sent you or form that they provided you with. So you do want to know the exact variant of that zip code that they have on file for you. And then finally, if it's your first time working with RMIS, they need to verify your certificate of insurance. So whether that's with TQL or Sugar's freight brokerage or with electric freight brokerage, if it's your first time setting up through an RMIS carrier packet or like a highway, they need to verify your insurance. So give your insurance agent a call, let them know, hey, RMIS, not the broker, but RMIS, the third-party service, is going to call or email you to confirm that I have active insurance in my policy, and please send that over if you can. Thank you. And that'll just get the process moving, because if your insurance agent does not confirm that information, you will not be onboarded until it's confirmed. I think I've only had one instance where an insurance provider was taking like 2 or 3 days to verify it. For some reason, it was going to spam. So that is the nature of carrier packets. This is the RMIS carrier packet. Go ahead and, like I said, I recommend saving that blog post. If you need assistance with any other form of carrier packet, leave a message and I will work on kind of figuring out how I can walk you through those, but they all should be pretty similar. I'll see you in the next video.
Hi everyone, I hope you're finding this series to be helpful. In the event that you need further assistance, you can book a one-on-one consultation with me by clicking the link tree in the channel bio. You can also visit guidetofreight.com and select the book a consultation option from the menu. I'll let you get back to your video.